Hello, Mixtresses and Mixters. This is Mixtress Ray. You're watching Mixtress video. This is just going to be a chatty video, so let me tilt up a bit. You can't see all of my beautiful Terra statue since I moved it to the shelf above, but that's okay. That's all right. Actually, I don't know if I like this. Let's fuck around. Let's fuck around. Don't want to see the light. I want to see the light that comes from the light, but I don't want to see the light. Anyway, okay. So, I want to share an experience with you guys. I spent all this time like redacting stuff because, okay, here's the thing. I have been offered and I accepted from a mass market publisher a tarot deck. It doesn't come out until the summer, and this video is not about any of the creators of that deck. It's not about the deck itself. It's not about the publishing company. It's about this experience. So this is the only time I've had this experience. One of the creators of the deck reached out to me privately via email, and we had a really sweet exchange. This seems like a person that I would be friends with, honestly. We had a great exchange, and I received the deck that doesn't come out until the summer. I received it in February. So I want to talk about the process of this because it's never happened to me before. The only time I've ever been given something for the purposes of review was not a mass market publisher. It was a different experience altogether. And I've talked about it before, so I'll just, leave that story out of it today. That was the last of my coffee. Okay, so I want to talk about the experience because, okay, so this is obviously, or it should be said, that this is an anecdotal experience because it's the only time I've experienced this. And so I don't know if it's always like this, but I bet it is. I am going on the assumption that the way that this experience went for me is probably similar to the way that it usually happens. Feel free, if you have experience with getting decks from major publishers and my assumptions are incorrect, feel free to correct me below. But I just thought, because I didn't know what this experience was like until now, and I may never have this experience again, I might as well talk about it. Because if I were you, I'd want to know the behind the scenes. So here's how the experience happened. One of the creators of the deck reached out to me privately and asked me if I would like a review copy of the deck when it comes out. And I said yes. I had no idea, like she did mention that it was coming out in summer, so I did not expect it in February. I got it 4 months before it comes out. And what I have here with redacted info, because I didn't want, this is not about calling out the creators, the publisher, this is not about that. This is about the experience of receiving PR as a tarot person on YouTube. Because it's never happened to me before. It may never happen to me again. When the deck actually comes out in summer, I may or may not make a video about it. I haven't decided. It's not about that. So let's get into it. The creator reached out to me privately, asked me if I wanted it. They respect my opinion and they like my channel, which is very flattering. So that right there is setting the stage, right? Someone was sweet to me behind the scenes. And so that automatically ingratiates me to the deck, right? So I was wondering how I was going to feel about it, you know, in that context. You know, if this is a deck that I would normally like or not like, how does the process change when it has been provided to me for free and I had a positive exchange with one of the creators behind the scenes? So I now feel like I have access to this creator because I can ask her any questions that I want via email. And because we already have a rapport. So that changes things, right? You know, like this is a topic I've brought up many times before, that like when you are reviewing something, it's never going to be objective. Ever. It's impossible to be objective. We're human beings. We can't be. We just can't. You know? So I want to read to you the little sheet that came with the tarot deck. Hi from name of publisher here. Enclosed, please find your complimentary advance copy of name of tarot deck here by name of creators here. We hope these cards inspire you and bring wisdom and creativity to your day. This is the paragraph that I think is most relevant. If you enjoy the deck, we welcome you to share it with your friends and followers across social media with an unboxing, a review, or any other content that feels organic to you. Images are available upon request, but please feel free to take your own photos and video to create the content that feels most relevant to you. Name of Tarot deck goes on sale on this date. To best support the creators and this deck, please consider sharing content close to this date or on that date specifically. When you share, we'd be grateful if you tag the following accounts on Instagram so we can all widely support your posts. And then there's a list of like the publisher, all the creators, and their Instagram handles. Our deepest thanks for your enthusiasm and support from name of creators here, name of publisher here, warmly, name of creators, publisher, etc. So, of course, all of that wording is nice and open, right? I can create a review, an unboxing, any content that feels organic to me. There's no requirements here. You know, I didn't sign any kind of contract. You know, something was given to me in the hopes that I would create a commercial. You know, that's what it is. And that's, I mean, we know this, right? We know this. But it's interesting to see it from this perspective because it actually happened this week. I had a friend of mine tell me that they were seeing that their feed was just absolutely covered in reviews of one particular tarot deck that came out this week, the week that I'm recording this. And they were like, it's so weird. It's so weird that everyone's interested in this one deck right now. I mean, I guess the publishers are all sending it to them right now. And I'm like, yes, absolutely that is the case. Because if me, someone that only has 4,000 subscribers, in a space where like the big channels have tens of thousands of subscribers, the big channels in this space have tens of thousands of subscribers. If I have this tarot deck right now, 4 months before it comes out, it is likely that all the big channels have it right now too. And so we're given plenty of time to create our content, create our commercials for this deck. And we have no requirements put on us. you know, the wording in this letter is really sweet and open-ended, and like, hey, we'd love it if you could post your content on this particular day and tag these people. We appreciate, it's very much, we appreciate you. We appreciate that this is what we would like from you. But if you read between the lines, you can, if you choose a cynical viewpoint towards capitalism in general, right? Here's what I hear. Here's what I hear in my head. Especially this paragraph that starts with, if you enjoy the deck, we welcome you to share it with your friends and followers. And then it goes into, here's how we would like for you to do that. Like, create whatever content feels organic to you, but tag these people and put it out on this date if you enjoy the deck. So what I hear is, just don't say anything if you don't have anything nice to say. And this is primarily, I'm also seeing this through the lens of, this is the wording that's coming from a tarot deck publisher to what is primarily female presenting, female identifying people. We are getting gentle language with rules and parameters in order to make free commercials for a tarot deck publisher. And yes, we were given a tarot deck for free, but think about this from a publisher standpoint, from a mass market publisher standpoint. I'm not talking about indie publishers here. I'm talking about mass market. From a mass market publisher standpoint, I would assume that they are sending, when a new deck comes out, they're sending it to dozens of people, right? I mean, we're still kind of a niche tarot deck stuff. Like, it's getting more popular, yes, but we're still kind of a niche place. You know, it's likely, I mean, I doubt they're sending out hundreds of decks, maybe closed. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But they're probably sending advance copies to dozens of people that have big social media followings. And so they can eat that cost. They're a big publisher, because the reward from it, you know, one of the bigger channels, you know who they are. So Michael would advise me to not name them, but you know who they are. The big tarot channels that are likely going to be putting out reviews, even of this particular tarot deck when it comes on sale, they're going to bring a lot of sales. So if somebody that has, let's say, 12,000 subscribers posts a sweet, flowery, beautiful commercial of a tarot deck for free, like, they're getting paid for the ad revenue on the video that they make, and they're getting paid through Patreon and other indirect sources, but they're not getting paid from the publisher, to my knowledge. I mean, maybe some publishers are actually paying people at this point. Again, I'm only speaking from my one experience, anecdotal, and from one particular publisher too. So different publishers probably do it differently, but this is probably the norm, right? This is why you see 15 or 20 videos about one tarot deck the week that it comes out. And that might be obvious to a lot of people, but it didn't really occur to me how this shit works until I experienced it. So for those of y'all that are slow like me, this video is for you. But, you know, for me, the way that I would emotionally react back in the day when I was really caught up in it, and I was buying a lot of tarot decks, way more than I could afford. When I was caught up in it, and I was kind of, a slave to the algorithm and shit like that, I would see this burst of all these different people talking about one particular tarot deck, and I would think, I mean, I knew that it was because the deck was coming out right now, that's why there were so many of them, but I also sort of bought it. I bought the hype. I thought that all of these people were really liking this thing right now, or they wouldn't be making a video about it, right? But, I get the pressure now too, because regardless of what my actual opinions on this particular tarot deck are going to be, I'm reluctant to say anything negative about it because I had a positive experience behind the scenes with one of the creators. I don't want to hurt their feelings by saying something negative about a creation that they helped make possible, that they helped bring into the world. I don't want to fucking do that. I don't want to hurt a human being's feelings. Like, I never wanted that. I never really wanted people whose art I was critiquing to hear my critiques of their art. I never really wanted that. I am, like Sylvain has said in videos, like, his reviews of things, he considers them to be for other people in the same position as him. Other people that are consumers of that thing. Other movie watchers if he's reviewing a movie. Other book readers if he's reviewing a book, etc. I don't want my reviews of things to be for the creators of those things. But at the same time, I enjoy making connections and friendships with people that create things. I want to create things myself occasionally. So, it's a tricky tightrope, right? Because you want to encourage people to make art. You want to encourage people to improve at their craft. You want to, like, I was fortunate. I mean, there's good and bad to this, right? But I was fortunate to grow up with a mom who was just unconditional with her support of my creativity. Almost without exception, she was unconditional. Like, there were times, I'm going to adjust the shot a little bit. There were times that she didn't really understand what I was trying to put out there. There were times when she would stop me from wearing a slip to school. And at the time, I would throw a goddamn tantrum because that was my self-expression for the day, But anyway, I grew up with that unconditional support of my creative expression. And it was a beautiful thing. But the dark side to that was the first time I ever got any real critique for my creative expression that could have been constructive critique, I took it so personally. So personally. This is probably just like a whole other topic that I didn't intend to get into, but anyway, so I've pretty much told you guys, like, this is the behind the scenes of receiving a tarot deck for review. You get it months in advance. You're encouraged to do it a certain way, but you're not told anything that you have to do. Oh, there's a crow flying by my house right now. Oh, I just saw it and heard it. And you guys probably heard it too. That's a validation to me. Like, I don't have I'm rebuilding my spirituality right now. It's kind of being rebuilt from scratch. But one thing that has remained steady is my relationship to birds in general and specifically crows. So every time a crow caws and crosses my path, that's like validation for what I'm doing right now. So that tells me right now that I'm going to post this video. Okay. Anyway, my relationship to creativity is complicated, and just like everyone's is, right? Like, you never, ever, ever want to say something that might hurt someone's expression. Ever. So I completely understand why in a space that's primarily women, and I say that because we are socialized to be like my mom, you know, like unconditionally supportive of each other. We don't want to critique things because we want people to feel supported to continue expressing themselves, to continue putting their work out there. I don't ever want something that I say. I hate the idea of someone being hurt by it. I really do. Even though I have definitely hurt people's feelings before. I remember the first time it ever happened to me, I was critiquing a book that I had read on my radio show. And the writer of the book actually heard my critiques. I had no idea. At that point, like, nothing like that had ever happened to me. I was not prepared. And, you know, I said some things like, I said that this was many years ago. It was, I'm not going to say the specific author's name and shit like that, but it was a book about drag queens. And this was probably like, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago when this happened. But I was giving my genuine critiques to the normal people that listen to my radio show, which is not that many. And I was saying that the book, I liked the sort of prompt of the book, the premise of the book, but the writing was not very good. She needed a better copy editor, maybe a few more drafts of the book. I didn't think it was ready for publication at the current state that the writing was in. And the author heard me say that. And she was very kind about it. She just sort of said, thank you for the constructive critiques. Thank you for your opinions. Thank you for talking about my book. And she was very kind, but it has plagued me to this day to hear, because I can only imagine how that might have made me feel. Like, you publish a fucking book and someone's talking about it, but they're saying that you're not a good writer. And it's because of my, I have two ways of thought about it, right? Because this particular thing that happened to me, like, my way of thinking about it is, oh my God, I hurt someone's feelings. I'm such an asshole. I can't believe I did that. I don't ever want to do that again. I'm so sorry. I felt awful. Awful. But from an objective viewpoint, if I could have an objective viewpoint about this situation in particular, I would say, well, it was my real critique. And, a person could take that and choose to improve, or choose to say, you know what, I actually disagree with that, so I'm going to ignore that person. But they could also be crippled by that critique. I personally was very crippled by art critique whenever I was first in art school. Whenever we had to do that thing where we all put, we have our projects finished and we put them all up and we go around the room and we each critique each person's shit. That was not for me. I didn't want to hear other people's opinions about my work. And the more I think about art in general, art critique, art creation, I want to critique it and I want to make it, but I don't want to know how others critique my art unless we're having like a one-on-one conversation. You know, um, if I'm talking to friends, like for example, Michael, like I love music and I sing. I don't sing very well, but I sing. There are certain things that I am able to sing well. Um, and I'm not great at knowing what I sing well and what I don't. Um, but anyway, Michael makes music. My Michael, the person that I live with, the person that I spend the most time with in my life, he makes music and I sing. So we have sort of talked about making music together, but we're both really, uh, there's a lot of shadows for both of us in our lives. Like doing that would be a huge achievement for both of us psychologically. So we haven't done it. But we talked about it the other day, and Michael said, I would be worried, I would be reluctant to give you any critiques in that scenario if we're making music together. He would be reluctant to give me any critiques or any constructive criticisms because he said he was worried about my reaction. And he's absolutely right. And I told him, you know what? We would have to get past that. I would get upset and emotional and defensive. And we just have to be willing to go through that to get to the other side. I'd have to be willing to think about what you said after my initial reaction, and you'd have to be willing to wade through my initial reaction and still make the critique. And yeah. So I don't know. It's a complicated thing because artists are by nature very fucking sensitive, because we wouldn't be able to express ourselves in the way that we do, whether your art is making music, making like literal like visual pieces of art in the more traditional sense of the way that we think of that. Whatever your artistic expression is, if we're doing a good job at expressing ourselves creatively, it's because we're sensitive. It's because we can see things in an emotional way that other people, not that they can't, but they're just not quite as connected to that aspect of it, and everybody's an artist. Like, I'm not saying that, like, artists are a certain breed of person, but people that are driven to create and they have to do it, it's because we are sensitive. It's because we are emotional. It's because so we're not going to take critiques well. I mean, we've seen it. We've seen when somebody has a genuine big criticism of a tarot or oracle deck that comes out, there are certain artists that lash out. We've seen it happen. I've experienced it myself. And you get it, though. You get it. Like, I understand why someone has that defensive reaction because I have it in myself, Yeah, it's a weird world because it's like, can you entirely disconnect yourself from someone else's critiques of your work? The healthiest thing to do, and many artists have been able to do it, but the healthiest thing to do is to avoid reviews. Because it's probably ultimately 9 times out of 10 more harmful than it is helpful. But it's also harmful from an art critique standpoint. It's harmful to not give your genuine, honest critiques of something. You know, if you're just saying all the good things, it's not telling the whole story. And I think art critique can be very nuanced and very interesting. Like right now I'm reading, I don't have it in here, but hold please while I go grab a book from the other room. Sitting in the chair so long. God, I'm old. When I stand up, my hips, I feel it. I'm reading these books right now that are called 33 and a Third. These are two that I've checked out from on Interlibrary Loan. So they're about albums. So this one's all about Portishead's Dummy. This one's all about Holes Live Through This. So they're written by music critics. They're written by music critics, and they're about the making of and the sort of musical critiques of particular albums. They're so fucking fascinating. For me, like the only ones that I will be reading in this series are the ones that are about albums that I know inside and out. So these are two albums that like I know really well. So reading an entire book about this album is useful to me because I'm finding out like, you know, just cool information about like how the albums were put together, how they were created, like, you know, anyway, it's fascinating. But, you know, if we didn't allow ourselves to have art critique, shit like this wouldn't exist, you know? And I guess tarot reviewers at this point in time, like we're kind of babies. This form of art critique is still in its infancy because, you know, in the grand scheme of things, YouTube is still in its infancy. The bigger picture of, you know, it's only been around since Janet Jackson showed her nipple on, it was like a year after that. But thank you, Janet Jackson, for YouTube. Love you. Love everything about you. But anyway, YouTube in and of itself is still in its infancy. And also, like, people critiquing tarot decks on YouTube is still in its infancy, right? In its infancy. Culturally speaking, big picture. So I feel like we still kind of don't know how to do it, you know? Because we don't want to hurt people's feelings, and we're a small enough community that, like, the creator of things is likely going to see it. And I don't know if that's healthy. I don't. But how do you avoid it? You know, if you're creating something, I mean, you want to see the shit of people effusively, enthusiastically enjoying your work. You want to see that. But with that comes the opposite. Unless someone doesn't have the guts to say what they feel when they don't have good feelings, you know? It's just something I've been thinking a lot about lately. Because in many ways, for a long time, yeah, woohoo. In a lot of ways, for a long time, my artistic expression was hampered by other people's thoughts and opinions. And I look back on that and I'm like, damn it, why did I let that happen? Because I was actually, like, if I look back on like the work, the art that I was making when I was in college, going to school for it, I was developing my own artistic voice. It was happening. I was going somewhere. I didn't know that I was going somewhere, but I was. I was refining my work. A voice was emerging, but then it stopped for all intents and purposes. And there's some emotional bullshit, some shadows, some bitterness that has developed because that didn't continue. You know, when I think about artists and, you know, how they express themselves. Okay, so if you think of an artist as having a voice, a particular voice, every artist has their own unique thing that they have to say, right? Whether, you know, whatever form of art they do. Like, let's give Trent Reznor as an example. This is somebody that I have been familiar with his work since his debut album. I didn't own it because I was like 7 or 8 years old, but my dad owned Pretty Hate Machine and he played it in the car. I remember being incredibly disturbed. I was not ready at the age of 7 for Pretty Hate Machine, which that's probably a good thing. If you are ready for Pretty Hate Machine when you're 7 years old, it's probably some psychological trauma, right? Not that I didn't have any, but anyway, that's an aside. In Trent Reznor's case, and I think that this is rare for an artist, but maybe it's not as rare as I think it is, but it's just because I've been paying attention since the beginning. Like, I have been familiar with each and every one of his albums as it came out. And I don't know if I can say that about many artists. I guess that's not true. I can say that about many artists, but this one goes back a long time, you know, because I was 7 or 8 years old when his debut album came out. And he is an example of an artist that I think he has only gotten better and better because he has refined his artistic voice. It's like he's always known what he wanted to say. You know, the building blocks of who he is are there in his debut album. But he's gotten so much better at expressing what he has to express, his particular artistic voice. It's just refined. Refined is not the right word because, I don't know, there's just like, you know, fancy connotations with it. But like, you know, whenever you're creating a piece of art, like if you don't have the skills to actually say what you want to say, whether that be with writing, with drawing, with music, whatever it is, you don't have the skills to say what you want to say, but you know what you want to say. And if you have a clear picture of what you want to say, and those things don't necessarily, like, it doesn't necessarily start with you knowing what you want to say and just refining it. Like, those things can also happen simultaneously. Like, for me personally, I didn't really know what I wanted to say, but when I created art, I was already saying it. It was like, it felt like an accident, but my voice was coming through. I don't know. I don't know how to say what I'm trying to say, but like, again, like, I think you have to put yourself out there before you're ready. Because that's how you figure it out. That's how you figure out what you have to say. And if we wait until our shit is good before we put it out there, we're going to cripple ourselves. But also, when we put shit out there that isn't that great yet and someone else says it's not that great, how do we get past that? You know? And if you're scared to do something, because a lot of us, if we're in an atmosphere of art critique, we might perhaps be potential artists ourselves, but we aren't actually doing the thing. And we aren't doing it because we're scared to do it. And that is crippling. And it creates bitterness. It creates, for me, it manifested itself in hyper consumerism. Like I was buying all these things to try to define me, when what defines me is my creative expression in the world. And if I'm not creatively expressing myself, then I'm going to attempt to define myself in really unhealthy ways. Anyway, I feel like I should probably stop here. 40 minutes is a good time to stop, because if I keep going, I'll say a lot more shit, but it'll probably get more and more confusing, because that's how it is with me. But anyway, I just wanted you guys to see like a little bit of the behind the scenes of receiving a review copy of a tarot deck. When you see a whole bunch of people talking about the same thing, it's because they were all sent the deck and encouraged to create commercials for it and to put it out on the release date. It's a manipulation spurred on by capitalism and consumerism. That doesn't necessarily, but it's still art, like the relationship between capitalism and art is so insidious, right? Because there are the people that are taking control of the whole thing, the publishers and record companies of the world. Anyway, don't get me started on that. Don't get me started on that. There's a lot of sociopaths in control of our lives. A lot. And, it's not a binary. You're not either artist or sociopath. But you can sort of see things through that lens, right? So let's be artists. Let's express ourselves. Let's be fucking ballsy and put ourselves out there.